Crimes and Punishment and The Devil's Daughter are the games that served not only as my introduction into the Sherlock Holmes series as a whole, and my inspiration to go out and buy the entire thing, so that we're able to do what we're doing right now. But they're also responsible for cultivating the brand new relationship I have with Sherlock Holmes in general. Before this, I didn't really know that much about him. I always appreciated the character and what he's meant to literature, and maybe I've seen a movie or two or three of his at different times over the years, but I definitely wouldn't have considered myself a fan until now, until playing these games in this series. Starting with the former, gameplay-wise, I would say Crimes and Punishment feels like more of what The Testament of Sherlock Holmes brings to the table. Maybe a step or two above that. It's definitely occupying that transitional space between paying homage to its point-and-click roots, but also is trying to push the series into a more modern feeling space. So it's kind of the best of both worlds still, more or less. And if we are talking about things like the feel of case investigation, suspect interrogation, evidence collecting, things of that nature, I think it'd be probably best and easiest to say it's akin to something like a LA Noire, if that makes sense. Really, the game's downfall, gameplay-wise, in my opinion, is that its loop is really quite repetitive. This is one of those games where we're not going to be pushing the envelope as far as its comfort level. It's definitely one of those games where what you see is what you're going to get the entire time. There's not going to be a whole lot of flavor, spice, variation in what we're doing. And overall, it just kind of came across to me as a bit dull. Now, where this game does kind of shake up the formula is in its story elements. What I mean by that is traditionally, the Sherlock Holmes games have always been centered around one narrative, one case that the entire game is built around and focused on solving. What this game does is takes the narrative and breaks it up into multiple cases. Think episodic, I guess. And they're strung together by this sort of overarching plotline that runs alongside it in the background and ties everything together at the end of the game. In Crimes and Punishment's case, it's a situation with Mycroft where he's trying to bring down this terrorist syndicate who's attempting to basically cause anarchy and overthrow the government. Now, if you were to ask me which style of storytelling do I prefer in my Holmes games, my gut would probably say the singular narrative. But I will concede that that is kind of a difficult question to answer, because it really depends on the situation, I think. See, it's a situation where if you don't like the singular case that the game gives you, you're going to be stuck with it for the next 5 or 10 hours until you either beat it or get sick of it and turn it off. The silver lining of doing it this way is that if you don't like a particular case that you're on, maybe the next one and or the one after that will be better and more enjoyable. So it really just kind of depends on the situation. In this game's case, I think, you know, when the cases are good, there's a lot of hills and valleys in Crimes and Punishment. I'd say that when the cases are good, they're fine. And when they're bad, they're an absolute slag to get through. Really feet dragging. They go on extra long, it feels like, and they're just not good. Overall, though, I didn't love the game. I didn't hate the game. I think it's perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. Maybe it didn't make the best first impression with me. Like I said, I did enjoy some elements of it. But overall, it is what it is, and it just didn't hit me. That doesn't mean it's a bad game. I don't think it is. There's definitely worse in this series. So I would put it right smack dab in the middle of the ranking between Persian Carpet and Nemesis, because that's exactly what it is. It's just a mid-tier game to me, where it's not good, it's not great, but it's not bad. It's perfectly playable, perfectly acceptable. You just have to accept it for what it is. Devil's Daughter, on the other hand, takes what Crimes and Punishment gives you and ramps it up. In that there are quite a few action sequences that actually involve the player to keep them intrigued and focused on what's happening and kind of on the edge of my chair. And you actually get to play through some intense sequences, which, in my opinion, automatically gives it a grade above. And then you get through the cases, which are pretty consistently just bangers, from what I can remember. Not only that, but I think what stuck out to me is that solving them is a morally confusing affair. Right? It's not like Crimes and Punishment, where it's necessarily kind of this black and white justice thing, where it's like, this person committed murder, of course he deserves to go to jail and whatever. This one's like, okay, this person committed murder, but here's the reason why, and is it justified? Is he really a bad person for doing this, that, or everything else? And it really causes you to pause and ponder kind of where your moral compass is, which I thought was absolutely fun and amazing. And the whole gameplay experience is just a cut above what Crimes and Punishment was. Now, the story, admittedly, is kind of where I had some issues. They weren't damning issues by any means, but they kind of, because I am the creature that I am, I was kind of a stickler for certain things after I completed this game and walked away from it, that have stuck in the back of my brain until turning on the camera to make this. So there, but like I said in the beginning of the video, I had no prior knowledge of Sherlock Holmes. My mom has, because she's watched the TV show and she knows a little bit more, so she kind of filled me in, but I personally had no idea about much of anything other than Sherlock, Watson, and Toby. That was kind of the limits of my knowledge that I was running with. So, naturally, the game kind of presents you with the secret of who is Caitlin Holmes's real father. And I'm waiting for this game to tell me because I've never played the rest of the series. I don't have knowledge of Sherlock Holmes or anything like that. So I'm waiting for it to tell me. Waiting for the end of the game for this grand twist where I go, aha, that's who she belongs to, and that whole scenario. So I get there, and there's a period where I get that answer. And she is, spoiler alert, she is Professor Moriarty's daughter. Now, like I said, I had no prior knowledge of who Professor Moriarty was, and kind of his relationship to Sherlock. No idea. And what's weird about it is the way that it presents that moment is, I don't know if it's supposed to be a twist. I don't know if it's supposed to be this grand reveal, but that's the way it was presented to me. I felt like it was supposed to be this grand aha moment, this grand holy shit, mic drop, can't believe, that's who it is moment that was completely lost on me. It fell completely flat because I had no idea what this was telling me. But I've realized since going through the entire series, I don't really know who that moment's for. Okay, because like I said, there is me, who, like I said, was lost the entire time. Felt really flat. I didn't really get what I think I was supposed to out of it. Definitely didn't have the reaction I think I was supposed to it. And then there's people that are aware, that have played the games beforehand. The only thing is that if you have that knowledge, it's not really a surprise either, because the entire ending of The Testament of Sherlock Holmes centers around Moriarty dying, and his dying wish to Sherlock is, take care of my daughter, raise her, make sure she has a good life, make sure she's properly educated, all that stuff. So fans of the series already know who she belongs to, already know what this big secret is. So like I said, I genuinely have no idea if this is supposed to be as huge of a moment as it felt to me. And I think the target for that specific moment, if it is one, is a very unique type of person where they, like me, this was their jumping in point to the series. They haven't played any other games. They don't know how The Testament of Sherlock Holmes ends, so it's completely new. They have no idea what's going on, but they also have a knowledge of Sherlock Holmes and can appreciate what that moment means, and they can have that twist, that reveal, and that reaction that it feels like it should give you. Which leads me to say, okay, if that's not the big twist, then it must be the fact that Alice, this nice, this kind, this sweet neighbor, her turning out to be a bad guy must be the big twist. If who Caitlin belongs to, who her father is, isn't the real thing, if that's a red herring, then it's gotta be that. And I don't want to take anything away from her as a villain. I actually really, really liked her. And I bought into her brand of crazy. Because when she, you know, decides to turn her psycho on, she does it well. And she goes from, like I said, this sweet, harmless enough young lady to this absolute crazy pants psychopath. So I appreciate that. The issue that I have with the ending of this game is that, to me, the intensity of the plan that she's concocted doesn't really match the justification or the motives that she has. Essentially, to my knowledge, bear with me if I get anything wrong here because it's been a while. Essentially, we find out that her father was a criminal that Sherlock puts in jail. And he, I don't know, gets sick while he's imprisoned, gets killed while he's in prison. Something happens to him where he dies. And she blames Sherlock for that. So she goes as far as to commune with the dead to find out whose daughter Caitlin really is. She moves into Baker Street, earns Sherlock's trust, befriends Caitlin. Also, she can kidnap her, turn her against Sherlock, and end things in sort of this murder-suicide situation of a child, mind you. And I don't know. I get the whole concept of like an eye for an eye. You know, you took somebody that, I loved, so I'm going to do the same to you. And I'm going to make you watch as I do it. I understand the psychology and the mentality of the story that they're trying to tell. I just don't think it matches up. It's very intense, very just kind of like I said, when she cuts the ropes loose and just goes completely berserk and you find out why she's doing what she's doing, it's way too intense of a final result to just be because you threw my father in jail or are responsible for him being in jail and he died, which Sherlock had nothing to do with. Now, if I'm misremembering, then maybe Sherlock did kill him. I don't remember, but if I am remembering correctly, he is not responsible for his death. Just the fact that she's blaming him for her father getting caught, I guess, and that is the intricate plan that she's concocted. That is the lengths that she's willing to go to. Again, great villain, but how we get from A to B here just kind of stuck out to me as kind of odd and just it's so intense, and I'm just not sure that it's her motivations and her justification for doing this dastardly thing. I'm just not sure it matches up. Now, what I will say, that it gives us a moment, all of this craziness gives us a moment that I did very much like. And that is that in an effort to save Caitlin's life, Sherlock basically has to talk her down. And kind of, chooses words very carefully because Alice, this crazy lady, has told her that Sherlock murdered her father, and her father was a a psychopath basically, and all these things to just confuse her and turn her against him. So he's having to very carefully tell her what she means to him and all this stuff, which is great character development because, as we know from Sherlock in this series and Sherlock in general, we don't get a lot of affection through him. He has difficulties showing the softer side of him. So I think having the game end with this severely threatening thing, this tragic event that's unfolding, to be able to have him express the things that he does to her and ultimately save her life, and just to have the two of them kind of go off in peace into the sunset is definitely, it's a happy ending, but it's also great character development for the future, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, overall, I still really, really enjoyed the story. I liked everything that they did here. Liked Alice. That's my one gripe. It's not a big one. It doesn't ruin anything. Overall, I would still put The Devil's Daughter between Testament of Sherlock Holmes and The Awakened. So that now becomes my number 2 favorite game. So, for what it's worth, there it is. For all of the complaining and ranting I just did about the story, it's still my number 2. So, there you have it. Crimes and Punishment and The Devil's Daughter. If you're keeping tabs at home, we have one more to get to, the most recent entry into the Sherlock Holmes Frogwares series, but that will be in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this. I would love to have some comments on, the discussion points that I made. Tell me what you think about Alice. Tell me what you think about her plan and her character and her heel turn and all that stuff. I would love to talk about it with you. But until then, guys, we'll see you in the next video.